God, this is going to be a long one. Okay, so technically this is not a full game, it's an add-on. Specifically, it's an add-on to the 2004 game Dawn of War, and I usually stick to reviewing the main game when I do these videos, but we're doing something special this week called Ronica playing fuck all else.
What was the point of censoring the F word?
Someone told me that if you say naughty swear words within the first 90 seconds, it affects the algorithm.
Is that real?
Maybe. This week I left the great nation that is my sofa and headed over to the sovereign country that was my PC chair for a bit of PC gaming. Look at me, I'm one of you, PC master race. Actually, wait, I'd rather not be associated with that miserable crowd of losers, so disregard that statement. If you're a PC gamer and I offended you with that remark, then you're exactly the kind of dickhead that I tend to avoid. If you have the ability to tell what is a joke though, and realise that what I said was said for humour, then welcome my friend, stick around, Vera will make pancakes.
No, she won't, but the PS5 will.
No, I have better things to do.
Name one. Just one.
I could, I just don't want to.
Hey, PS5, buddy, maybe you should. I mean, this week I have, no real use for you, as I did all my gaming on the PC and only really turned you on to watch the Orville.
You're cheating on me? I thought what we had was special.
Really? Wow, that was stupid of you.
Oh, you're in for it now, buddy. I will unleash the full power of Sony and strike you down.
I forget I could just do that. Anyway, Dawn of War, Dark Crusade. If you enjoy these videos and want to support the channel, then head over to patreon.com/RonicaReviews. It's only £1 a month to become a supporter. This will help me keep building the channel and keep bringing you content. And best of all, you'll get 24 hours early access to new review videos, a shout out at the end of said videos, and you'll be able to suggest games for me to cover. If you want something more tangible back for your support, then I have a T-mail shop where you can pick up some merchandise. I recently added these 2 new shirt designs, and there are plenty of other things on there for you to browse. Some other shirts, some tote bags, and even a jigsaw puzzle. Also, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe, so that way you never miss a video. Anyway, back to the review. Dark Crusade is the second expansion of Warhammer 40k's Dawn of War. You command one of 7 races in their conquest for the planet Cronus. Your task being simple enough: wipe out everyone who isn't you and avoid being wiped out by everyone who isn't you. You select your race at the beginning of the game, your choices being Chaos, Eldar, Imperial Guard, Necrons, Orcs, Tau, and Space Marines. When you select a race, you get a little intro movie that tells you a little bit about the race and why they're here. I won't go through it in detail just yet, I'll leave that till later when we discuss the races properly. After the cutscene, you're plonked into the world map, and this bit of the game is turn-based. During your turn, you can attack any enemy province that borders your own, which takes you to the top-down real-time strategy battles, or you can use your time and resources to build up defences in the territories you already own. Once your turn ends, each race gets their turn. In this time, they can, and sometimes will, attack your territories, which will offer you the chance to either defend or auto-resolve. Auto-resolving usually means that the army with the greatest strength wins, the strength of the attacking and defending forces being displayed here. Defending puts you back in the top-down real-time strategy battles.
I'm thinking you should probably talk about those real-time strategy battles.
You know, I think I will talk about those top-down real-time strategy battles, and I swear I'm going to make that the last time I say top-down real-time strategy battles. When you attack your first province, here's what you'll begin the fight with: your army's primary commander unit, a builder unit, and your headquarters building. This being the case for every race in the game. From here, you can build up your base, recruit troops, secure territory, and take the fight to the enemy. A good idea, especially for any provinces that border your army's stronghold, that being the bit on the world map where you begin the game, is to invest a lot of time and effort into making these regions as unassailable as possible. Some races are naturally better at base defense than others, but a good plan in general is to build a secondary headquarters building somewhere on the map, and don't be afraid to have multiple barracks, research centres, and vehicle depots. Vehicle depots. Fuck it, I'm leaving that in. Oh, also turrets. Build turrets. Lots of turrets. But this will get pretty expensive, right? You see that blue number in the top corner of the screen and the green one slightly below it? The blue one is your requisition resource and the green is your power, and you'll need these to build new structures and recruit certain soldiers and tanks. Here's a fun note: I wrote the word new as the word now in the script. I really need a proofreader. Power is simple enough, just build more generators, though keep in mind that every headquarters building can have a maximum of 6. Even more reason to build a secondary HQ somewhere, in my opinion. Requisition, on the other hand, is produced passively by your headquarters building, and this production increases every time you capture one of these points. Strategic points can be found across the entire map. Sometimes you'll also find relics in critical locations, but these are not always present. Strategic points are pretty crucial to reinforcing your control on an area. You need infantry squads in order to capture them, but once you've done this, you can reap some useful rewards. I'm sure that you've noticed this. When I select to build most structures, they have to remain within this white control zone around the HQ. Capture a strategic point or a relic and construct a listing post on this site, and it produces a small control zone of its own. This means that you can have multiple points across the map that have barracks or vehicle depots built near them to quickly reinforce reinforce your front line when things get rough. It also distracts enemy forces who are on their way to your main HQ, which allows you time to cut them down. Each time you successfully invade a province and destroy the enemy faction within, you gain planetary requisition, which you can use to reinforce your areas, and you usually gain an elite honor guard that can protect your leader and typically are really useful for your next invasion as they can capture points. It means you don't have to spend as much time building infantry to get some control going. Some areas on the world map give you different bonuses though, like increasing your defences or giving you a boost to the amount of squads that you can have, perhaps another action every turn, but to me the best one is the spaceport that lets you attack anywhere on the map whenever you like. Without it, you need to fight from province to province, taking on enemies one at a time and expending countless troops. Let's talk about your troops. Each army has a rather specific approach to warfare and their own unique soldiers to requisition. Let's go through them one by one in no particular order, starting out with who I think are a good all-rounder army, a jack of all trades, so to speak. Now if you're a fan of Warhammer 40k, then you'll know that a Space Marine, one of these dudes here, is essentially an army of one, able to take on threats far greater than himself without breaking a sweat. Or at least that's what Imperial propaganda will probably tell you. How do you think such an army would work in game? Small squads of elite soldiers who prioritise excellent equipment and individual strength over numbers? Well, you'd be wrong, you big smelly idiot, because in Dark Crusade it's pretty easy to build a really big force of Space Marines. The standard Space Marine attack squad in this game costs 190 requisition, which is a bit high for a common soldier squad, though it's not the highest. And they don't take up any more squad cap than any other army's primary combat squad.
This is the time where I remind you that you haven't mentioned squad and vehicle cap yet.
I mean, is it really that hard to figure it out from context?
Well, no, it's in the name, innit? Squad cap is your squad capacity, vehicle cap is your vehicle capacity. It's not exactly rocket science.
You're not wrong, but let's play it safe. Every vehicle or tank you make will take up a certain amount of squad/vehicle cap. Both caps typically max out at about 20, and most forces' basic attack squads only take up 2 points. Space Marines are no different. They might start out small, the squads that is. Most squads only start with about 3 or 4 members, but then all you have to do is click this reinforcement button, and it produces more squad members. Though I should also point out that each member of a squad that you want to add will cost some requisition or some power sometimes. However, it won't impact your overall squad cap. Each Marine squad can be brought to a total of 9 members, including a sergeant. And on top of that, there are 4 options for special weapons that can replace a Marine standard bolter. A heavy bolter, basically a giant machine gun. A missile launcher that, well, you know what it does, it launches missiles, that one's not hard to figure out. A plasma gun that shoots plasma, again I probably didn't need to explain that. And a flamethrower that shoots flame. Every single one of those descriptions was useless. Each time you upgrade a weapon, it changes how effective the squad is against certain targets. Something I didn't mention in either script that I wrote, and I'm going to mention now, is that each unit type has a, well, type. You've got infantry, heavy infantry, commanders, vehicles, and demons. I think that's all of it, and each weapon is more effective against a certain type of target. A Space Marine squad can have weapons upgraded to be effective against every fucking thing. And again, you can have loads of these squads, so it's hardly tactics. It's basically just blowing a kiss as the very idea of crafty tactics leaps out the fucking window. Now, this is not to say that you cannot just keep your squads small, but why would you? It would be pointless. You could also point out that without the multiple infantry upgrades, Space Marine squads are less effective, but it doesn't really take much to get those upgrades. I mean, yes, each time you attack or defend an area, you need to re-research any upgrades you might have had, but it's not the handicap it sounds like. Space Marines just feel a bit broken to me. Well, maybe not broken, just a bit poorly balanced. Only time I've ever lost a game as Space Marines was when I was playing online against a rival army of Space Marines. Still, they're a good faction if you're new to this whole thing, and if you're also a prideful, xenophobic, religious nutter, then you'll fit right in amongst their ranks. Now on to the Imperial Guard, who have my favourite unit in the game, the Baneblade, this monster right here.
By the great crime tortoise of Tim Tom Tabby, that is a fuckload of tank.
Yep, that's 11 barrels of raw Imperial fury right there, and an absolute fuck you to anyone who happens to be anywhere within the astronomical unit. Each army has an ultimate unit like this. You'll need to control a relic, and typically you'll need to jump through some technology hoops. But once you do, you can bring your ultimate weapon to the field. Given that some areas don't have a relic, it's not always possible to do this, so take advantage when you can. I find that Imperial Guard make it the most rewarding, because a typical guardsman squad is not the most impressive thing. Even with upgrades, they have a huge morale problem. Oh yeah, morale is that blue bar below your health bar when you've attached a squad. Attached a squad? Clicked on a squad. Fuck it, that stays in. If it depletes, your squad becomes drastically less effective, and guardsmen are particularly vulnerable to this. They do have numbers and tanks on their side though, including my beloved Baneblade Senpai. My point is, given the general weakness of your troops, it's really satisfying to finally be able to bring your ultimate weapons to bear. Although that's not to say that playing as guardsmen isn't enjoyable. The guardsmen make for really strong defenders, as they can create powerful firing lines and can even be garrisoned in inside their buildings. They can shoot attackers from the safety of their barracks and even move between buildings without having to exit them. So a good tactic that I found is to have your main infantry serving as your base defence, whilst sending a transport full of elite soldiers escorted by the Baneblade to the enemy camp. This tactic can naturally take quite a while and it isn't always viable. Again, not every map has a relic and you need a relic for your Baneblade, but I feel these factors make it all the more rewarding to pull off successfully. Both the Imperial Guard and Space Marines are here to secure the planet for the glory of mankind, and both don't want to look like a pug in front of the other, so they've decided to duke it out. There's no opportunity for diplomacy between these two factions, you just gotta kill each other. Kinda feels like a missed opportunity, but oh well. Next up, the Tau, the planet's rulers, who are here because they'd rather their planet didn't get taken over by hostile forces. The Tau specialise in cutting enemies down from afar. Their main troops have an extremely poor melee attack, but they make up for it with their excellent ranged attacks. Hell, their melee attacks are so poor that they have aliens from a race within their empire serving as their close combat fighters, so they don't have to do it themselves. Something else about the Tau is they have a unique progression system for base building, albeit a rather pointless one, as you can build either a Modcar command post, which allows access to the best battlesuits and tanks, or the Kion command post, which lets you have dogs and a gorilla. Thing is, in all my years playing, I've never seen a need to make the Kion command post. You can literally only have one or the other, and I've always gone for the Modcar command post because it's just the better one. The XV8 crisis suit that the Modcar command post allows for is a very powerful combatant, and while you can only have 3 of them, 3 is the perfect number. A single one of them is good enough to take on an entire squad of infantry, but if you get 3 together and upgrade their weapons properly, they can basically take out anything. They even have jetpacks to get over impassable terrain and to retreat quickly if they need to. And then there's the Hammerhead tank. It's a bit more fragile than most armies' heavy tanks, but it hits much harder and has an impressive range about it. What do the dogs and the apes do? Well, they do close combat, something that your normal melee dudes are already fine at, as you're not really supposed to kill people in melee as the Tau, you're just disrupting enemy troops so that your riflemen can snipe them. What makes it even more odd is that no matter what post you build, you can still have access to the Tau's ultimate unit, but the ultimate unit is a T-Rex thing, which is clearly a member of the Kroot race. Oh yeah, the Kroot are the melee dudes, I forgot to mention the name of their race, they're Kroot, now you know. If you say needed to sacrifice your heavy suits and your tanks in order to get it, it would make some sense, or at least it would in theory if T-Rex Boy wasn't completely pointless in comparison to tanks and suits. Seriously, a T-Rex is cool and all, but I'm taking hovering tanks and battle suits over a giant chicken any day of the week. Next up, Chaos. Saying they're just evil Space Marines could work, but then Space Marines are just evil Space Marines. Not much of a distinguisher there really, verbally speaking, but I kinda guessed that the point of the Warhammer universe is there are no good guys. I guess I could say that they're spiky Space Marines, still morally questionable, but at least these ones get to get freaky with demons. Chaos Marines are fairly similar to Space Marines. You still have access to highly populated heavy attack squads with decent weapon upgrades, although you have less weapon upgrades this time around, but you do get extra members of the squad, so I guess it all balances out. But what actually makes their army interesting is their access to demons. Chaos have access to things such as Pink Horrors, Possessed Marines, Obliterators and the Bloodthirster, and all of them can be absolutely devastating. Pink Horrors and Obliterators can be extremely effective at taking down tanks and buildings. In the latter's case, they're effective against everything because they've got so many guns. And both of these squads can be teleported from their spawn point right to an enemy's base as soon as you can see it. Possessed Marines are extremely effective close combat units, and then there's the Bloodthirster, who costs a fuck ton of resources to make, but can be summoned through any squad who has a sergeant or a sorcerer attached to them, and he just absolutely stomps everything. He loses HP when not in battle, so you need to keep him fighting or he'll despawn. But this both represents well the demon's purpose in the larger universe of Warhammer, and it balances the creature. Not much else to say here, really. I guess I could point out that the Chaos have considerably less tanks than Space Marines, although the demons more than make up for that. I could also mention why the Chaos are here. They want to spread the news to the Dark Gods. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Orcs are a bit of an odd duck in this game, mostly due to their approach to population. Each individual orc costs 1 population point, 2 for bigger orcs, and you can max this out to about 100, which means depending on who you're facing, you can actually wind up with a smaller attack force than your opponent, which is odd because this is one of the orcs' main things, is their whole numbers thing. I could have said that more elegantly, but I didn't. This is because of how they were presented in the original Dawn of War game, and it largely worked better. In the interest of professionalism and boredom on a Sunday afternoon, I went back to the original Dawn of War to play around as the orcs, and I was impressed by just how much stuff the orcs had and how much had been cut out for Dark Crusade. Sad, really. Still, the orcs are quite fun. Your main goal is to swarm your enemies, and this is where the orcs absolutely shine. They've got a healthy balance of ranged and melee dudes to pick from, but they're pretty much ready to take on any faction you come across. The drawback to orcs is they don't wear much armour, so you will endure a lot of casualties. Orcs have an additional bonus for themselves, though, and that's that all of their buildings have little turrets on top, aside from the generators, making their bases easier to protect without a dedicated defence force. I like the orcs. I used to play them a lot. Why are they here? Because war is happening and they don't want to be left out. That's pretty much the reason. Eldar are next. These space elf wizards are here to... Actually, I'm not entirely sure why they're here. I know they're ancient enemies of the Necrons, and they want to destroy the Necrons, so that's one reason, but then why would they be here on a campaign for the entire planet? Doesn't make much sense. Perhaps they just saw it was already a mess, and they might as well go to war while they're here, you know, in the neighbourhood. Eldar rely heavily on agility, stealth, and ambush tactics. That brief second when the Eldar emerge from hiding and catch a foe by surprise is when they shine their brightest. You can quickly decimate an entire enemy squadron before they've even realised what's happening. Eldar have these buildings called webway gates. You'll want to build as many of these as possible across the map, as they're how the Eldar get around undetected. They are vital structures and also provide access to 3 brilliant types of research that make the Eldar more effective in their tactics. One research heals allies that are nearby the webway gate, one lets the gate turn itself invisible and is polite enough to share this with the class, by that I mean any building nearby, and the final one lets you teleport entire bases to different webway gates locations. A useful tool for getting things out of danger, reflecting well the Eldar trickery. And now, to round things all out, the Necrons. Necrons are very weird. They don't use the requisition resource, and it's only their builder units that can even capture strategic points and relics. Their HQ building produces all of their units, including their tanks, and all of their buildings just serve as components to bring your HQ systems back online. But that said, when the HQ is at full power, it functions as a mobile fortress, still able to produce troops, but now with the added benefit of being able to move and shoot, though it is slow. Very slow. In fact, my elderly gran could probably outrun this thing, but at least it has the power of a coked up Death Star and can teleport over long distances when it needs to. Another thing about the Necrons is resurrection is kind of a big thing in their army. You can perform a research at your research building, weird that, isn't it? That lets your commander resurrect dead allies, and it's really useful because it quickly restores a fighting force. Necron troops are not that special or interesting on their own, they're just mostly robot skelly boys, and they're kind of mediocre as fighters go, but this ability to keep on coming back paired with the mobile base makes up for this. One other thing I kind of want to mention is that you can perform certain researches to turn your Necron Lord into the Grim Reaper. He can't be damaged in this mode, it only lasts for a little while, but he can do a lot of damage when he's transformed. I don't know, it just amuses me, I thought I'd show you. Overall, I'd say races in this game are well balanced enough, if we ignore the whole Space Marine situation, and each provide a unique and interesting way to play the game. The enemy bases are all interesting to assail as they all have different win conditions. Take the Eldar for example, their main base has both an army of rogue orcs and an army of rogue chaos serving as lines of defense, and to defeat the Eldar entirely you have to capture 3 critical locations, this being the only time in the campaign when you actually have to do this. The game can be a lot of fun, and there's something oddly satisfying about watching your control of the planet strengthen as you conquer province after province. That's not to say the game is perfect though. Its graphics haven't exactly aged well, and the voice lines that the squads deliver every time you select them can become annoying. Thank God you can change that in the options menu. I mean, you can also change the graphics, but they're still pretty crap even when you do. But it doesn't really matter, as I often say, as long as the graphics are doing what they need to do, then they're fine. But I kind of want to say now, it's not that I don't appreciate really good graphics, I just don't think they're as important as the core of the game. Sound-wise, the game has some good background music, and the majority of the sound effects serve the game well, with all armies' weapons being distinct enough audibly that even when you haven't seen the troops you know exactly what you're fighting. Or at least I did, but then I'm a bit of a geek and I've played this game way too much. One of the criticisms I can make is how cut down the game feels in some areas compared to the original. Yes, we have a bigger variety of armies, and we've got new squads to play with, these are fine, but we've also lost a few of the old researches and upgrades to certain troops that worked well towards that element of strategy. Also, the old Eldar boss had a ponytail, which is cool. I could also say that it's a shame that the game is so basic in terms of its win conditions. By the time of Dawn of War Soulstorm, the third and final add-on for the Dawn of War game, we had campaign territories that had separate win conditions rather than just removing the enemy HQ. We typically had to dismantle any building that was capable of unit production. Also, a few maps utilised those critical locations for take and hold missions. I probably have talked about Soulstorm this week, but there's one element of it that makes it difficult for me to play and enjoy, but we'll worry about that another day. Something else that's worth pointing out is just how bad vehicle pathfinding can be, with tanks getting stuck on fucking nothing sometimes.
Standing by. We'll make the Emperor proud. We live by example and duty. Awaiting instructions.
And how sometimes when you try to get troops to go inside your tanks, they just won't do it, because reasons. They'll walk towards the tank, but they won't actually enter it, or just stand there like a gobshite, making me need to move the tank around a bunch until they actually remember what they're supposed to be fucking doing. And sometimes the game just won't register commands. I can press this button to add a captain to this squad, you know, if the game feels like letting me. So Dawn of War Dark Crusade is a bit rough around the edges, technically and mechanically speaking, and it's easy to fall into that trap of just making huge armies and flattening everything without even bothering doing a tactics. And the game doesn't punish push you enough for doing so. Yes, it costs a lot of resources to make big armies, but it's not that hard to get a huge amount of resources. But all that said, it's still a pretty decent game. This was my very first Dawn of War title, so I'm sort of feeling an urge to be kind, but I do see its problems. Things like the fact that the Tau army don't even have turrets, so you can't defend their bases. You need to keep a regiment of troops back there if you want any sort of protection. Sometimes there are moments where the game just doesn't make any lore sense. This comes with a disclaimer that I'm not very good at Warhammer lore, so if I make a mistake, I'm sorry. There's this one area in the game that once you capture it, you get an extra action every turn. You capture it by basically slaughtering the enemy army that's guarding it. Why is that? Well, because the Chaos Blood God is around this area and he just loves it when you do a bit of murder. So in my mind, the Imperial Guard and the Space Marine should not want this area. Or if they do, they shouldn't want the bonus that it gives them. This kind of just feels like a missed opportunity where if you're playing as a certain race, you have a different objective in certain parts of the map. But regardless of all the issues, I still enjoy the game. I wouldn't have spent the last couple of weeks playing it if I hadn't. If you're into strategy games or Warhammer 40k, then this game might appeal to you, and I'd say go for it. If you're not, then yeah, don't bother. Dawn of War 2 is like way better anyway. Anyway, that's all done. I apologise that this video is much longer than I usually do reviews for, but here's a bit of fun for you. I had to completely rewrite this script because of a few key errors I only noticed when I was recording, and there was like no way to change them without changing the rest of the script around them. That was fun, and a fine reminder to myself to get someone to fucking proofread these for me. Balls, I just remembered the two things I forgot to mention in the review. Well, there are more than two things, but these are the two things that kind of jump out at me, so let's just quickly get this over with right at the end here. You may have noticed a couple times that my armies change colour. That's because I'm playing a skirmish match. Skirmish basically just lets you set up a match, set up the victory parameters, and play until you win or lose. Fair enough, innit? It's a single map. You can choose any race you want, you can set up any enemies you want, or you can play in multiplayer, same sort of thing really, except this time the other army chooses itself. And also there's the commander gear. When you defeat a province, when you secure a province, sometimes you'll get a piece of gear for your commander. We won't get a piece of gear for your commander, you'll get a token that you can spend on a piece of gear for your commander. That's what I'm doing here. I couldn't decide between the jetpack and the missile launchers for my little Tau commander. There you go, that should be all of the things I forgot. Yeah, those mistakes I made, They kind of made this review not fun because I had to go back and like redo a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, I'm gonna try and be better. Anyway, thanks for watching if you made it this far. You know what, if you made it this far, I want to see, to type the word bubblegum Tyrannosaurus if you made it this far. I just want to see who actually makes it this far. Any hoodly doodle, I'll let you get on with your day now. Bye. I'm sure you've noticed this. When I select to build moose structures, possessed marines are extremely expensive.